So today I'm concentrating on looking for new work, and so I thought I would do a little bit of a conversation about how a consultant looks for new work. And there are so many ways to look for new work. Depending on your circumstances, I'll go through all the different options. One of my favorite options is to align with other business consultants or even consultancies or recruitment consultancies, and to tell them what my preferences are, what my skill set is, and where I'm strong and where somebody might want to use my skills, especially on a part-time basis rather than a long-term basis. So typically the projects that I take on are 1 to 2 months. Sometimes they're even shorter, sometimes they're like a week long, depending on the kind of job. So I make sure all my contacts know about my skills and what I'm looking for, and that includes recruitment consultants, business consultancies that I know, like IT consultancies, and other consultants, freelance consultants around, because quite often a consultant will be asked to do a particular piece of work and they won't have the skill set. But if they know somebody else who does have the skill set, that gives them a few brownie points with the client. And it also helps me, of course. And they often can charge a little bit for referring the work to me. So they like it too. So that's some of the networking ways of finding work. Other networking ways of finding work include things like meetup groups. Now, be very careful how you pick your meetup groups, because there are some that are a real waste of time. But some of the meetup groups specialize in particular areas. For example, I was in a business continuity planning and disaster recovery meetup group, and I've written a book on business continuity planning and disaster recovery, and I'll cover that in another video. So that was a very good way of finding short pieces of work that were very lucrative, that paid very well, because it's very hard to find people who specialize in business continuity planning and disaster recovery, especially consultants who do not work for one of the big four, who charge a lot of money. So by going to that meetup group, I found other people who really needed my skill set but weren't prepared to pay for the kind of big four kind of rates, but the rate they were prepared to pay was quite good for me. So that's something to take into account too, meetup groups. Nowadays there are also LinkedIn groups, which are really good. They're becoming fabulous, and I am getting a lot of work through those. Obviously choose the ones that are local to you. With meetup.com it's a lot easier to find the groups that are local to you. With LinkedIn it's a little bit more difficult to find that. However, some people are quite prepared to travel for the right contract anyway, so you may be okay with joining groups that are across the nation or somewhere. Personally, I don't like going outside the Atlanta area very much. It would cost a lot more money for me to do that. So I tend to join meetup groups or LinkedIn groups that are close to me. But again, be very careful about the groups that you join in terms of the specialist skill set that you have, and make sure they're suited to you, so that you're not just wasting your time. Another thing to worry about in LinkedIn groups is quite often people are asking you to give away your expertise for free on the group. Be careful to give a tidbit of information and not give them everything, because then they won't need to hire you. So that's another thing to be careful of. The other kind of ways to get work are through recruitment consultancies. Make sure that they all have your resume. Make sure it's clear on your resume the kind of work, the kind of location that you're prepared to work at. For example, for me, I'm only prepared to work in North Atlanta or fairly close to North Atlanta, in the slightly north of Atlanta area. But some people are much more flexible than me. Sometimes I will take on a project if it's in South Atlanta or Midtown and so on, but only if I can work from home for most of that. So make that clear on your resume. Also, make it clear that you're open to short-term contracts or part-time work and so on. You'd be surprised how many recruitment consultants are asked for candidates who can work on a very short project or a very part-time project, and the recruitment consultants don't know about anybody, and they just say, oh, sorry, I don't have anyone like that. So for me, it's a very lucrative way of finding work, because most of these recruitment consultants only know about me. So I'm the one that gets the work, so that's very nice. And I can often fit those little pieces of work around other clients that I have, so that's very useful too. Sometimes the work can be done at the weekend or late in the evening, or sometimes it's just a day when I don't happen to have a client. There's a little piece of work that comes in and I can do it. So that's another way to think of. Also, have resumes on all the big websites. So if you're going for the high end, the Ladders is very good. If you're going for more of the medium stream, places like Monster and Career Builder and so on. Also, if you're happy to work from home, there's a lot of freelance websites working from home. There's things like guru.com, freelancer.com, elance.com, and so on. I always have my resume on all those places, and I make sure that all the keywords are in those resumes. Now, when I say resumes, I actually have a number of different resumes on all of those sites. I have skills in many areas because of my e-business consultancy background. So I have a project manager resume, I have a web developer resume, I have a technical architect resume, and I have a business continuity planning and disaster recovery resume. And they're very, very different resumes. They're very tailored to the kind of job that somebody would be searching for a candidate for. So, for example, in my web development resume, the words C# and SQL Server and .NET and JavaScript and Ajax and JSON and Angular and Bson, B-S-O-N, I never know quite how to pronounce that. Angular, Knockout, all those kind of words, XJS, all those Node.js, all those kind of words are in my resume, and I emphasize the skill sets that I have in that area. And I have a lot, and luckily, because I quite often multitask and I have multiple projects and they overlap, it looks like I've almost continuously been employed doing that kind of work. Although I haven't been continuously employed in that work, I have got an awful lot of experience in that field. So when I get a job like that, I can definitely do the job, and I'm very, very confident in it. And I often do technical architecture work in that skill set too. So the technical architecture resume is very similar to the C# web developer type resume that I have, except that it's a little bit higher level. So I'm looking at the business strategy and how to make sure the IT strategy matches that, and the application portfolio information, and information like capacity planning and disaster recovery and business continuity and so on like that, which people who are looking for a technical architect want all those skills, performance skills as well, making sure your website performs and making sure it integrates well with the back end. So the keywords they're looking for are all in those resumes. But also in my technical architect resume, it mentions that I've got a really good strong background in C# and SQL Server and .NET. It's just not quite as big as in my web developer resume. Those two are my main big skills, the technical architect side and the C# web developer side. And I also make sure that I list in my resumes all my certifications. I've got certifications in lots of topics. I have C# and ASP.NET web developer certification, Microsoft certification. I also have HTML5, CSS3 and JavaScript certification from Microsoft as well, and also SQL Server 2012 certification. So those are the main ones that I put in those resumes. But then I list the others that I have as well, because that, they can often be very useful too. The fact that I know all these different JavaScripts and I know Java, the fact that I know network security, internet security, business continuity planning, disaster recovery, e-business, e-commerce, various quality standards and so on. That's all useful when you're looking for a job, even as a programmer, especially if it's a senior programmer. So the technical architect role, of course, that's all very, very useful. And for the business continuity planning and disaster recovery resume, I just emphasize a lot of the technical architect skills that I've had, especially the ones around business continuity planning and disaster recovery. A lot of work I have done has been about doing almost like audits. Well, I've actually done audits. So, for example, I've done COBIT audits, ISO 9000 audits, Sarbanes-Oxley audits, CISSP, CISP, whichever one you like to pronounce it as, PCI, all those kind of audits. So that often involves business continuity planning and disaster recovery within that. And so I emphasize all that within that resume. I've also, as part of that work, done a lot of code review, quality review, and so on. And I bring all of that information into that resume as well. So make sure that you've got a few different resumes if you have different skill sets. If you really are focused on one skill set, if you're just a real expert in C#.net, for example, then really emphasize that area and just give lots of examples in your resume of where you've had experience in those areas and certifications and so on in those resumes. But have those resumes up on all these websites, because you've got to think like a recruiter or think like someone who's looking for a consultant. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to go to the web and they're going to search using Google for someone local who has your skill set. So they're going to go, for example, in my case, they're going to go to Atlanta business continuity planning. That's what they're going to put in a search engine, business continuity planning or disaster recovery in Atlanta. So that's what they're going to be searching for. So I want my resume to be the first one that comes up when they do that search. So if it's on lots of websites and I've got all those keywords in there, then I'm likely to be one of the first people to come up when they do that search. It saves them a lot of money if they can just do that search and find my resume from that. And I also make sure my resume has my LinkedIn resume link on there, so that once they've found my resume, they can use LinkedIn to find out if they know anyone who's employed me before. Because I've been employed by a number of clients over the years, and they just have to go to that company and say, do you know this person? Did she do some work for you in this area? And that helps them to know, how good I am and so on. And that really helps. I've also got a few referees on my LinkedIn page and on my resume who they can call direct from my resume, and they can find out if I am who I say I am. So all that kind of information is very important. Have your resume and your LinkedIn profile up there. And don't forget, on your LinkedIn profile, make sure that every certification is up there, every skill set is up there, every job you've ever had is up there, every piece of education you've ever had is up there. Make sure you're updating it constantly. As an e-business consultant, I do a lot of work, so I change clients all the time, and I must religiously update my LinkedIn profile and add in any extra information, any new skill sets I've had. Another solution is to have more than one LinkedIn profile, one for the me who has C# expertise and web development expertise, and another one for business continuity planning and disaster recovery, for example. That's what I have on LinkedIn. I have two profiles. And what it means is that I connect to different groups and I connect to different people on those two different profiles, and I get different job opportunities on those two different profiles. And because when people go into LinkedIn, what they're doing is they're searching on the keywords, and then I come up. If they're searching for business continuity planning experts or disaster recovery experts in Atlanta, then I come up on LinkedIn. So that's another really good way to get some work. So that's given you some ideas about how to find the work in the first place. Later we'll talk about, once you've got an interview, how to deal with that, also how to keep your skills up to date and so on, and then after that how to handle clients once you're in work with that client. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to, every time I do one of these videos, I'm going to write a little piece after it, and I'm going to put some links into it to articles I've written or articles I've found that I think are useful to the particular topic. So for this article, I'm going to list a few links that I think are useful when you're looking for work as an e-business consultant. So thank you for listening today, and I'll see you another day. Thanks.